Hello everyone and welcome back. I am Will with Ratings Game Music, and today we are talking about the first Star Wars movie to hit the big screen in several years. That's right, we're talking about Jon Favreau's The Mandalorian and Grogu. What even is Star Wars anymore? A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, it was the premium event theatrical cinematic franchise to end all cinematic franchises. For decades, the words Star Wars conjured up images of packed movie theaters filled to the brim with breathless anticipation, but that was long ago, before the franchise inexplicably committed seppuku on a global stage and permanently tainted its reputation in the eyes of fans, critics, and general audiences alike with 2019's The Rise of Skywalker. That film saw the once confident franchise quite literally breaking its own back and undoing prior developments from across multiple films in the name of catering to some of the loudest, most vile, and abhorrent sections of the fanbase imaginable. The result was a devastating blow to the long-heralded franchise's sense of legitimacy, something which was only further undermined by the Walt Disney Corporation then deciding that Star Wars was to become an exclusively streaming released franchise in order to keep people signed up for the then new streaming platform Disney+. The result was a gradual, steady bleeding of the franchise's impact and cultural relevance, bringing us all the way back to now, in 2026, where the first theatrically released Star Wars film in 7 years is Jon Favreau's The Mandalorian and Grogu, a feature-length addition to the director's own Disney+ series. If that sounds like a strange, dissonant decision to you, making the franchise's big leap back to the big screen essentially a slightly elevated version of what audiences have already been inundated with for years on their television, that's a good instinct, because you're right. The Mandalorian and Grogu isn't without its charm, I guess, but it's a bafflingly constructed oddity that feels more like a corporate mandate brought to life than a film anyone involved is particularly passionate about making. So these are the top 5 things you need to know about The Mandalorian and Grogu. Number 5, a misunderstanding of episodic. It is my staunchly held belief that the meaning of the phrase episodic has been bastardized in recent years, as advents like streaming platforms have actively incentivized creators to stretch narratives out to their limits. The idea of what an episode of a story should do has been drastically mistranslated, and nowhere is that more apparent than in the work of Jon Favreau. Favreau has been the primary writer for every season of The Mandalorian, as well as the universally panned 1 season of the Book of Boba Fett. That means there's 4 full seasons of Star Wars content out there that is unquestionably his, written without a writer's room, and it doesn't bode well for the man's take on episodic. Irvin Kershner's The Empire Strikes Back is an episode within a larger story. On this we can all agree, yes? And yet the entire trio of Star Wars protagonists there, Luke, Han, and Leia, all enter that film as one thing and leave it completely, irrevocably changed. They all go on substantial, meaty arcs and have their worldviews completely altered by that film's end. Contrast this to Din Djarin or Grogu and The Mandalorian and Grogu, who might as well have not had anything happen to them over the course of the film's 2-hour runtime at all. They are entirely stagnant for the whole of it, leaving it in the exact same way that they entered. Similar to Favreau's approach to individual episodes or clumps of them in his TV material, but it's even more disastrous here. He's not employing an episodic approach, he is making a completely superfluous story that future generations can and will discard altogether. Number 4, the pacing or lack thereof. The Mandalorian and Grogu begins in a way that is steeped in both the traditions of Star Wars and other pulpy serialized franchises like Indiana Jones or even James Bond by having a cold open that drops the audience in with the titular protagonist mid-mission. It's a move that makes sense, but it sets an unfortunate precedent for the rest of the film's runtime because every subsequent scene feels like its own individual cold open. This is a film full of entirely disparate sequences, all of which Favreau and his co-writers have elected to attempt to tie together with the jankiest of duct tape. The resulting work quickly devolves into a monotonous dirge of a film in which it feels as if the movie just keeps recycling the same series of beats over and over again. Mando shoots up a room full of antagonists with guns, enters into some poorly staged melee with a CGI antagonist of some kind, Grogu does something cute, and then there's a scene of 2 characters attempting to have a conversation that is inevitably delivered and edited with all the energy of a boardroom meeting. I've never been as bored during a Star Wars movie as I was during this one. Number 3, a TV movie. Favreau has continued to play coy on the press tour for this film, suggesting repeatedly that while he did write a 4th season of the Disney+ streaming series The Mandalorian, this film was actually written separately later as a different project. However, it is blindingly obvious that this film is just several episodes of a TV series stitched together, down to unintentionally and humorlessly duplicating the Simpsons movie gag of "to be continued immediately." On top of that, the whole thing looks and feels like it was made to be viewed on Disney+, not in a movie theater. From the lighting to the clearly unfinished VFX in some scenes, to the frankly claustrophobic claustrophobic sets and frequently obvious use of the volume screens for set extensions, to some of the absolutely baffling directorial choices that result in a visual language that feels muddled, inconsistent, and flat out confusing at times. Everything about The Mandalorian and Grogu feels small and insular, and that's not what you want from Star Wars' return to the big screen. Number 2, Ludwig's musical score is a bright spot. Look, if there's anything I earnestly enjoyed about this film, it was Ludwig's music. In any given scene, you can count on his contributions to be easily the most articulate and thoughtful. So much of the film feels like Favreau just coasting on fumes, but Ludwig's work here is actually bringing something fresh to the table rather than simply recycling the same themes and motifs of his work on the first few seasons of the TV series, and I applaud him for that. Number 1, nothing new. One of the big set pieces in the middle of The Mandalorian and Grogu features Mando squaring off against Rotta the Hutt in a gladiatorial arena in which all of the creatures are fleshed out homages to the Din Djarin board, space chess for those who have lives, from the original 1977 Star Wars. So to reiterate, here we have off-brand Boba Fett with off-brand Yoda fighting against off-brand Jabba the Hutt, all while they are surrounded by literal action figures brought to life. Is this all that Star Wars is now? Just references to past things? A pale imitation of something that once evoked an actual emotional response? Jon Favreau has a very specific taste when it comes to Star Wars storytelling, and it's almost entirely devoid of anything resembling new. Instead, he just likes to kind of chuck everything in a blender and pour out the resulting slop for Star Wars fans to lap up, pointing at the screen and recognizing a thing like it's a 2-hour-long YouTube Easter egg video rather than an actual film. The marketing for The Mandalorian and Grogu continuously promised it would be a new hope, a very loaded phrase in Star Wars, for a new era. And if this is what Star Wars has planned for its own future, just an unending hallway of increasingly distorted mirrors that do nothing but convey the most shallow and surface level rendition of something vaguely familiar, I think you can just count me out. Grade for The Mandalorian and Grogu is a D. The Mandalorian and Grogu is an utterly deflating viewing experience that left me feeling totally numb. Star Wars used to mean passionate cinema. It used to mean a viewing experience that you could remember for a lifetime, and now apparently it just means content for the sake of it, and that is a goddamn shame. If you feel differently, if you loved The Mandalorian and Grogu, make sure to comment, let us know below. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe this video. Spread it around to all your friends so we can keep the lights on over here, keep doing reviews just like this one. I really hope Star Wars gets better, man. I love Star Wars to death, and I would love nothing more than to see a great Star Wars movie in theaters again, but this was certainly not it. Anyway, folks, thank you so much. Have a wonderful one, and we'll see you again soon.